Karanasan ko po, di na ba nakasalanan natin dito?
Media educators are warning calls to defend press freedom.
Karanasan ko po, di na ba nakasalanan natin dito?
Media educators are warning calls to defend press freedom.
Good evening, you're watching News Cafe on the Solar News Channel. We are at the Summer Komikon in Bayanihan Center in Pasig City, where all comic enthusiasts have gathered to meet their favorite artists and writers and share their love for all things comics. We'll be meeting some of those writers and artists later and delve into their colorful minds. Comic books have been a big part of Philippine history, dating back to the first cartoon strip of The Monkey and the Tortoise, drawn by national hero Jose Rizal. Its popularity rose after American soldiers came to the country to fight during the Second World War. The Philippines even had its own comics in the form of Mga Kabalbala ni Kengkoy by Romualdo Ramos and Tony Velasquez. Years later, Filipinos began to break into the international comic book industry, working for publishers like DC Comics and Marvel, creating characters such as Batman, Superman, and Thor, to name a few. However, in the last 30 years, there has been a decline in comics as more people shifted their attention to television and movies. In 2005, a group of comic book artists and writers called the Artists' Den gathered together and started a comic book convention, or Komikon, solely dedicated to comic book enthusiasts. I'm with comic icon Jerry Alangilan. Jerry, anong experience ng Comic-Con ngayon?
Natutuwa naman ako na may Komikon kasi nabibigyan ng venue yung mga gumagawa ng comics para mailabas yung comics nila. Kasi most of these kids self-publish their own comic books. Wala silang venue kung saan na pwedeng ibenta, pwede lang i-promote, share yung comics nila. So in events like this, nabibigyan sila ng pagkakataon.
So what do you think is the best part of Comic-Con? Maybe this year compared to the previous ones?
Well, the best part of Komikon talaga is seeing all these creative people creating comic books out of the love of it. Hindi dahil they're being paid to do it, hindi dahil they're being told to do it. They do comics because gusto nila ang comics, mahal nila ang comics.
Today, Comic-Con is being held 3 times in a year annually, bringing together comic book enthusiasts and their idols, raising awareness on the local comic book industry, and giving support to upcoming comic book writers and artists. Hey, it's Paul Medina Jr. Hi, Paul! Kumusta? Paul, kumusta Comic-Con 2014?
Okay naman, kagaya din ng ibang Komikon sa pinupuntahan pa ng tao kasi akala ko mag-wane yung interest ng tao pagkatapos ng few years, pero hindi naman eh.
So feeling mo tumutulong talaga to sa comic industry dito?
Malaki tulong niya kasi ang perception na namamatay na yung industriya eh. Dahil nga andyan na yung mga video games, andyan na yung movies, ganun. Parang kaya na nila nung yung hard copy na comics, gusto nila yung digital na. So ito ang laki ng tulong nito.
This year, Comic-Con is celebrating its 10th year, promising to bring more exciting comics to its fans by introducing new and fresh artists and writers. We're now with Lyndon Gregorio, co-founder of Comic-Con Philippines. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
And of course, you're a Philippine Star columnist, 16 years of
Yeah,
Dekada.
16 great years.
Yeah, but before we talk about that, how are you finding Comic-Con 2014 so far?
Well, we are getting a lot of energy from both the fans and the creators. They are putting out their best.
You're happy. That's good to know.
I'm very happy, both as an enthusiast of comics and one of the founders.
So 2005 was the first Comic-Con in UP Bahay ng Alumni.
That's
no?
correct.
How was it then and compare it to now?
It was hot. There was no air conditioning. So yeah, this is the hottest event. That's what we always called it. It was a summer, and we call it one of the hottest events of the year. The hottest event.
In every sense of the word, literally and figuratively.
Yes. And now with the experience what air conditioning in the venues feel like, we're never going back. I heard though they installed air conditioning. But we really like it in Bayanihan Center.
Yeah. And it's just as well you have better facilities because every year it's growing, no? How many Filipinos are attending every year?
2,000 plus as of last count for the last year, yes.
And it seems to have doubled. I think
It
today
seems
it's
to
huge.
have grown, yes.
How do you think this helps the local comic industry?
It is raising awareness for our creators that there is still an industry.
Yeah.
It's fueled by those who have a passion for the medium.
Yeah.
So that's great.
Well, speaking of the passion, how did you develop the passion for this?
Well, I caught the tail end of the last the golden age of comics. Well, I was taken to the dentist, and while waiting, my mother rented, and they rented comics then, funny comics, and I spotted, and I fell in love immediately with the medium.
Yeah.
And we didn't have money then, so I started creating my own comics. So she didn't buy it outright, so I started making my own. And right smack of that, it was already declining. You know, sales were down, people were no longer reading. And I'm glad that me and my fellow people, we found each other through internet. That was when I started learning how to draw. And right then, there was something called email groups, and we would start communicating.
Yeah.
And a few years after that, we decided, why not? Since no one's helping us, we should help ourselves.
It's true. So how do you choose the participants, the artists and writers, illustrators that join Komikon every year? Because we have so many talents, no?
Oh, that's true. It's usually a first come, first serve basis. And there's a preference for those who have already established a relationship with. You know, the regulars, those who can be relied that will come out with a new title.
Yeah.
And we support very much their consistency and their professionalism. And then we always try to spot the upcoming artists. We have this thing called the independent comics, and we always give them a free table. And we always look for those who show potential, and then we promote them, or they do it themselves. They create their own work, and then they start leasing their own tables, exhibitor. And then we choose them. Among those, we choose those with the most promised, and we feature them in the lineup.
You also have contests, no? You run some contests.
Oh, definitely. And there are always several people who join these contests. And when they're regularly producing consistently good work, they become part of the convention.
Yeah. And do the people who come, are they traveling from other parts of, beyond Manila? Do you have people attending also from
Yes,
beyond?
they recognize that Manila is the biggest market so far, local market. And so they visit and they invite us to their comics event. It's a rising trend that the provinces start their own convention.
Because you have satellite events as well, no? To
Well,
tie up with Komikon.
there are satellite comics events that, and we help each other out.
Yeah. Do you ever collaborate with Comic-Cons abroad, like the U.S.? Or
We started participating two years ago with Singapore, and we're planning to expand our partnership and make the world know that the Philippine comics is a force to deal with.
So what's your favorite part about the Comic-Con? I mean, being an enthusiast, this is like your playground. You meet great artists.
Yes.
You see a lot of great artwork. What do you love most about this?
It's taken for granted now, but there was a complete lack, an absence of good comics when we first started in 2005. And right now, even if the budget tans failed to release a new title, they didn't make the title, there's always going to be the new one or another consistently regular one who releases the new comics. So there's a complete joy that there's good and exciting comics to read.
So with every Comic-Con, would you say that you really see a difference in contributions to the comic industry?
Yes. Everyone is upping their game, improving, not just in the content, not just in the production, but also in the promotions. They're becoming more ambitious. Before, I was thinking I'm the only guy innovating with my box sets, but now I'm feeling it hard to compete. These young guys have these great ideas.
There's new blood.
Yeah, and the energy. It is scary, and I'm seeing some of the older creators competing in their own terms. They're collaborating and they're teaming up. And that's a good strategy.
That's true. Well, that's interesting. How has it changed from 2005 and even from your first column of Derkada? How has the culture changed? And just looking at the different generations, can you tell us some of the differences?
Oh, before 2005, it's all talk. Oh, how are we going to save comics? I am going to release the next comics that will revive the industry. And in 2014, the question is how, the comics is being revived already. And it's about collaboration, not competition. People are helping each other out. People are contributing artworks and getting mentioned in comics in turn, sharing their fan base. People are arriving, attending Komikon because of their favorite artists, and they spot these new creators and they become fans of them as well.
Yeah. Well, back in the golden age of comics, which was about the 40s, no, to the
Yes,
early 80s?
40 to 80s.
Yeah. We were printing about 2.5 to 3 million comic
Yes.
series a week.
Yes.
Do you think we'll see that coming back now? Well, we get them online.
The target is online, and the target is the world.
Yeah.
We can easily get millions. And I'm scanning these innovations that Amazon is buying these comics websites, and I pray when the time comes we have plenty of content. It's gonna be converted to ebooks and online content, so we'll be ready when it's our turn.
And you think there will be a return to mass consumption? This is a medium that spans all social backgrounds and classes. Huh?
Yes, and not just locally, but of course internationally. We have to create accessible work so that not only will our talent be showcased, but also Philippine culture.
Right.
We are going to mine our histories, mythologies, and current culture so that the entire world would be interested to show what the Philippines is all about.
Excellent. Wonderful. Well, Anolas, what can we expect in future Comic Cons? What might we have, even if it's a dream that you'd like to see happen?
The big thing I hope is that we systematize the collaboration among the creators. These guys have good ideas, but when we start talking to each other and we're not doing it yet, it becomes great ideas. And we start sharing, and so we can help the new ones catch up to speed, no?
Yeah.
Get up to speed with their works because they already know the how to make great comics, and then they'll input what they know.
Yes.
So it's better for everyone.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Lyndon Gregorio.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations on a wonderful event, and
Thank you.
more power.
Yes.
We'll take a short break. When we return, we'll be talking more about comics, so stay tuned.
Taon-taon yan, napapansin ko, nag improve yung quality niya. Parang nag evolve from simple illustration. Ngayon, kung kukumpara mo ngayon yung quality, malaki yung improvement. Kanina, binabrowse ko yung copy ng Rodsky Patotsky. Nakita ko na ang ganda ng artwork, ganda ng kulay. And I'm sure maganda yung content, yung pagkasulat ni Jerry. Yung ipagpatuloy lang nila yung paggawa para hindi lang tayo kilala sa labas ng bansa, dito rin mismo sa Pilipinas, magkaroon tayo ng local audience para magkaroon ulit ng golden period ng comics. Kailangan i-revive ulit yun.
I'm with one of the independent artists here at Comic Con, Jon Santos. Laris, kwento naman. I'm with one of the independent artists here at Komikon, Larry Santos. Larry, kwento naman, kumusta ang Komikon 2014 for you?
As now, masaya siya at maganda naman yung response ng mga komikero talaga dito.
Sa tingin mo, bakit importante ang Komikon para sa Pilipinas?
Well, sa atin kasi, lalo sa aming mga artists, mga komikeros, matagal na kasing parang namatay yung spirit ng mga comics. At the same time, parang maganda yung Komikon para i-showcase uli yung talent ng mga Pilipinos na sa comics.
With the people behind Zombinoy, John Eliana, the writer, and the artist, Carlo Cruz. Hey, welcome, guys. Tell us quickly, what is Zombinoy in a nutshell?
Zombinoy is your Filipino zombie comic book.
Alright, we love zombies. Now, you've been to 6 Comic-Cons, no? Anong pagkakaiba ng Comic-Con 2014 from the previous one?
Every time, there are more people coming to Comic-Con. There are more creators and artists. So it's one big family.
Yeah, how do you feel about the response of the Pinoys through the years? Is it getting better? Is our industry growing?
Yeah, it's definitely growing, and especially when we have international guests. So a lot of people come here not just for the local artists. They come to meet the international artists. So it's a help for us.
We have with us now Tintin Pantoja of Comic School Manila and one of the co-creators of the horror crime comic series 13, Budget Tan. Welcome, guys, to News Cafe. Hello.
Thank you.
It's quite an event today, Comic-Con 2014. Your initial thoughts, Tintin, on how it's evolved so far. I mean, it's been 9 years, no? How are you seeing the reaction today?
It's
Comic-Con?
incredible. I mean, just the growth has been great from UP to here. Just the number of people contributing and and coming and buying and reading. It's really encouraging.
Great. Budget, so the industry is growing. It's hopeful for the comic industry in the Philippines.
Definitely. It's every year it just seems to get more active and there are more contributors and we find new readers.
Right. So we always, I mean, big enthusiasts. Like the Philippines is really largely influenced by comics. Now, I'd like to ask you both how you got interested, starting with you, Tintin. How did you get into the whole comic book fever?
Oh, well, I've always, back as I could remember, as way back as I can remember, I read Archie comics, Tintin comics. I think I got into it because of the name. Yeah, and then I evolved from there. I just started reading whatever comics I could get my hands on.
And you've always liked to draw. Also.
Yes,
That's how you got into the artistry of it. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So I think that influenced my love for comics also. I was always visually oriented.
Yeah. Well, Budget, I know, I remember you used to go to a place in Green Hills called Phil Bars, huh? You had your day or weekly trips with your dad?
Yes. Yeah, it was because of my dad who encouraged love for reading. And I guess it was because of my barkada in grade school. We all bought comics and exchanged comic books, and on our free time we would make our own superheroes. And I think that started it all. And even though I grew up, I kept making more characters.
Yeah. So what do you think the difference is, with all there's TV now, online games? It's been said that the people nowadays are not into comics so much because of the distractions of television and online games. But what is the beauty of comic books for you, Tintin?
I think you can make them on a relatively low budget, so low overhead. So you can tell much more personal stories than you could with, say, something that takes a lot of funding, something more commercial. Yeah. So they're definitely a good medium for intimate stories and personal visions.
Yes. Budget for you.
I mean, if the great thing about comics is, as Tintin said, it's something that can easily come out weekly or monthly. An Avengers movie cannot come out on a weekly basis. You have to wait like 2-3 years for the next one. So if you fell in love with the characters, if you like that kind of adventure, that kind of excitement, then the comic book medium is where you'd want to go.
Yeah.
Whether it's printed or on the web, I think it's now a great time to either be a comic book reader or a comic book collector, because there's so many ways to enjoy the medium.
Yeah. Well, you still do. You're in advertising. your co-creator, Kajo, has said that when you were coming up with Trece, you wanted an outlet to do something with your creativity that wasn't stifling. How did you decide to come up with...
Trece was an old character which I just brought back, and when Kajo said he wanted to do a comic book, I resurrected this old character. Any character, politician, or political incident that might have been placed there, of course, aren't intentional, but like I tell people, I can't help but write these stories because I grew up with parents who told me there is an aswang outside the window and there's a multo inside the room, and you see on tabloids headlines that says Manananggal attacks Manila. So we're still living in a city that believes in these things. So you just can't help but write about these supernatural things.
Yeah. Well, for you, Tintin, for your work, you were living in the U.S. for a while where you started doing a lot of your work. Tell us a little about the content, how you are inspired to draw or write about certain topics.
Well, I tend to gravitate towards stories and work about young women or kids, young people coming of age. I like stories with a very youthful feel to them. I think that reflects a lot of my own still going journey towards adulthood. I think ongoing.
That's right.
Yeah, not
We
quite.
have not grown up yet.
We've got the children in us. So horror is quite a big topic, even from way back, no? The Philippines, whether it's movies, horror has been such a huge theme, no? And was it Ruel de Vera who said in one of the forewords in your book, he said there are 3 books that actually he reads for horror, and he said one of them is Trece. So what is it about horror that you think keeps the Pinoys or your audiences in check and keeps you on this topic?
I think we love horror, and our love for horror ranges from the cheap thrill of getting scared, of somebody saying boo, and you getting shocked out of your seat. At the same time, I guess it's a release for us, that you read something really scary and it makes you just feel so lucky that, doesn't it feel great? I don't have a serial killer running after me. But yeah, it's us getting to face our fears from a safe distance, I guess. And that's what I try to explore, these secrets that we have, and that just take on a guise of an aswang or manananggal.
Very well done. I'd like to read something that Jerry Alangilan also wrote in 2008 in your book. He said, Trece came out like lightning from the blue, catching me unawares, electrifying me, throwing me clear across my room, and flattening me on my back. Basically, he's saying it's a brilliant piece of work. And it's evolved since then. How do you come up with these characters? Of course, the Manananggal, the Tiyanak, all of those, but we see a lot of the urban legends coming out too, like the mall stories. Do you actually come out with an outline? What is the process of coming out of your writing?
Yeah, a lot of them is, like I said, I grew up with all of these urban legends and all of these stories about folklore and myth. And the question I have in my mind now is, where are they in the modern city? Where did they really come from? So it's really me trying to find out through Trece their secret origin. Or why did they become a monster? Why did they become a killer? So it's just really me trying to find answers, since nobody else out there is giving us the right answers. So I'm hoping to put my questions to rest.
Yeah.
And luckily enough, it's entertaining people at the same time.
It seems truthful too, huh? For you, Tintin, for your content, I mean, what are you trying to do through your work? When you try to do a social commentary with some of the drawings or some of the writings that you put out?
I think right now my work is purely escapist. So it's purely fantasy. It's just an indulgence into stories. I'm not at the point where I can make social or political commentary deliberately.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's not my aim.
Tell us about Comic School Manila. You just started this recently.
Yes. Right now, Comic School Manila is a series of workshops I give, hoping to cover the production of comics, from coming up with ideas to how to draw, to the layout of a page and storytelling, the whole gamut, all the way up to production, selling, marketing, publishing, and just in general getting readers, getting it out there.
And we have such a huge pool, no, of talented writers
Yeah,
and
definitely.
illustrators. In fact, many have said that there's been a lot of good illustrators, but not writers. And I think it was also Jerry who said that you are one of the really good ones. So what do you think of when we look at writers, when writing for comics or graphic novels versus drawing? Are we not having enough good writers? What's the problem here with the Filipino writing budget?
I think we just need to find that outlet, especially for writers. If you take a look at the phenomenon and what's happening now with Wattpad, you now have a lot of teen writers who want to write romance stories. I finally figured out I can upload my romance story here and people will read it. We probably need a comic book equivalent of that. Right now, this is what we've got, the Komikon. It happens thrice a year, so maybe it needs to happen more than just 3 times a year. I think the internet is a place that can finally like encourage them to write and upload their stories. So I think the venue was just vague for people a couple of years back, but now that they're seeing things like this, I think it encourages them to write more. So that's what we need more of.
Well, you were one of the founding members of Alamat, which is one of the first comic book publishers. How has the industry changed since then? Or even the talents, the people that you're working with? It's changed in leaps and bounds, huh, Budget?
I'm just happy every time I attend Komikon to see like thousands of more people attend. When we started Alamat in 1994, we held an exhibit in like a small corner of the mall. So I'm just happy that we're not stuck in that place. And again, the variety of work, it's not just all superheroes, it's not just all, manga-inspired work. It's just a great range of stories and art. So I think if we keep on this track, we might see another golden age of comics coming soon.
Great. Well, Tintin, having worked abroad and now being back home, do you feel that there's different support systems? Do you think that it's easier to work as an illustrator or an artist in the United States, for example, compared to here?
As an illustrator in the U.S., well, there's more avenues to sell your work right now. There's more networking events, I think. There's more industry support in general for the art. There's unions for artists, for example. So I think there's more industry support. It's much more well established. But then there are flourishing Filipino illustrators who work for the U.S. market and others. So that the advantage here, of course, is that with the internet, you can almost live anywhere at this point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, since you brought up this whole Pinoy world-class talent budget, you have said that many times Pinoys, when they see good work, especially places like this, they are usually not really acknowledged until they've made it internationally. So people often wonder, wow, may ganun pala tayo dito. What is your take on that? That are we not recognizing many local talents enough? And how should we do it?
I think it's just a matter of them getting exposed to these types of stories, because on the reverse side of it, some of my books and the books of my fellow comic book creators have ended up in the hands of foreign comic book reviewers. And they were amazed by it. They're amazed at the talent that's found here. So I think they just need to be found. Definitely, of course, you get more attention when you draw a Superman comic book or an X-Men comic book. And it just makes you, I think the great thing about that is it will inspire the younger artists to know that a Pinoy can make it and draw Marvel and DC. But at the same time, I think they should also remember that there's a different sort of magic when you create your own and not draw somebody else's character. So if that inspires them to create their own, then great.
Yeah. Tintin, did you want to add something?
I have to add. I think there's definitely a resurgence of pride in local artists and local work. Just with events like this, with Trece, with books like Manix Abrera's books, the huge popularity, the lines, Visprint, the local publishers, Tabipo, all those new books coming out.
Well, in terms of the reception also of your audiences, you have seen the reception of your stuff abroad and here. Do you think that audiences respond differently in the U.S., for example? How is it? Or those who've seen your work internationally, Tintin, is there Do you think there's more? Because there's huge fandom, and maybe we just see more of it in Comic-Cons abroad or something.
There's a more varied reception in the U.S. I think it really depends what small part of the audience you're talking to. I think I was talking to a lot of the kids, a lot of the fans of manga and fusion stuff, and the reception was generally positive. I think, especially with the internet right now, and kids looking at work in Japan, work at Europe, looking at stuff in Europe, they're definitely open to different points of view, different origins.
Yes. Yeah. Budget? Any?
If it's any indication at how manga has invaded the world, I think the same thing can happen for Filipino comic books to also, own a corner of a bookstore in shops abroad. Our creators here are as talented as the Japanese creators and the American creators and European comic book creators. So
why aren't we being recognized as much? Well, slowly, of course, you're saying they're now in DC, Marvel. But it seems, is it just because the culture maybe or the environment doesn't give this kind of support system?
I think we're slowly getting to that spot where you just can't help but ignore that there is a growing number of comic book titles and creators here. Maybe that's the big difference between us and Japan. In Japan, you enter a store and it's just a library of comic books. Right now, we have a couple of shelves. But I think like I said, we're at that moment where we're now filling up bookshelves in the bookstores. So once that happens, I think that's when foreigners will start noticing us. That's when right now, our comics are just being sent as pasalubong to friends. But I think when a market over there realizes that we have really great work, I look forward to the day like foreign bookstores will start shipping our work over there. And I think that's coming soon.
The awards help also. Trece has received many national book awards. So you feel that the award, although we shouldn't aim to just get an award, the awards do help in terms of recognition.
Yeah, it's great that an award-giving body like the National Book Awards has a category for graphic novels. So it does create awareness not just for regular readers, but as well as people in the academe. It's now... we were happy to have been invited. Trece is now required reading for K-12, for the K-12 reading list of grade school students.
Yeah.
So it's the start of little steps to getting there.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the training. Not many people really have formal training. No, this is something they do as a hobby. For you, Tintin, since you are teaching this, how do you feel in terms of the discipline of Filipinos in learning the craft? Do we have a long way to go? How do your students respond?
Yes, for a lot of us, and this doesn't just go for Filipinos, but in general, it takes a lot of people underestimate the effort it takes to make a comic book. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint, as I've heard it described. So I think I try to instill that in my students. The more you work, the better you get, and the faster you get. So it's all about putting in the work. Yeah.
So what do you think, what would you like to see happen in the industry, or even with aspiring comic writers or artists? What do you think we really need to do here?
I'd like to see a healthy readership develop that could support creators here. Yeah.
Budget?
It would be like efforts like what Tintin is doing. Aside from getting inspired and encouraged to create more, I think new writers and artists need guidance. They need mentorship, how to improve their craft. So, because if you just keep letting them do the same mistakes, they might be churning out 10 comic books a year, but if it's full of mistakes, then it doesn't move us forward.
Right.
So getting feedback, whether it's from readers or professionals, I think will help us improve the craft and the industry as well.
Well, Budget, the big question everyone is asking, will there be a film? In the GT Macon in 2011, there was a dramatization of Trece. Do you think there might be a film coming up of...
Of course, we'd want to see Trece in the big screen or on the small screen. So, yes, that will happen soon. We don't know exactly when. We will not give you a break date.
Yeah.
But yes, that would be great to see someday.
In the meantime, Book 6 is coming out this year.
Yes, we're working on Book 6.
And Tintin, if people want to join comic school, they can go to your Facebook pages. Which we'll
Yes,
put
to
on-
the website, comicschoolmanila.com.
Yeah.
And there's a link to the Facebook page there.
Well, thank you very much, guys. I know you have to get back to the Comic-Con. Thank you, Tintin and Budget, for being here. And all the best. More power to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Well, we just need to take a short break. When we come back, we'll be talking to more icons at Comic-Con. Stay tuned. You were here, well, you attended Comic-Con since 2005, no? How would you compare 2005 and all the other Comic-Cons to the one today?
It just got bigger. Laging ganun, every year nagiging mas malaki siya, mas maraming attendees, mas maraming creators, mas maraming titles. It just gets bigger and bigger, and that's good.
What can you say about the fans, the people who come here? Kasi naalala ko yung noon pa ibang culture ngayon. How would you describe the comic enthusiasts that come to Comic-Con today?
Siguro one observation na masasabi ko is mas open sila kasi based dun sa mga titles na nakikita ko naka-display now, may range not only from superheroes, may superheroes, syempre hindi mawawala yung superheroes, and then supernatural, and then may mga nakita ko na romance, may mga nag-explore na ganun. So I guess kung may readers, may mag-create, and vice versa. Ganun.
It just reflects na active talaga at alive yung comic book community natin. Aside kasi maraming, ang swerte nga natin kasi marami tayong artists who are currently working. It just reflects na active talaga at alive yung comic book community natin. Aside kasi maraming, ang swerte nga natin kasi marami tayong artists who are currently working for DC Comics and Marvel Comics. And tapos yun yung domino effect niya na these artists who are established already in the US mainstream comics, they inspire other artists to produce their own work. Kaya ganito rin ka-rich yung community natin when it comes to producing comic books, as well as yung hype din na nangyayari dahil sa superhero genre. We have lots of superhero movies that are being shown this year, and as well as comic book-based movies.
What is your favorite thing about Comic-Con?
You know, being a comic book writer right now, and a fan, it's the best time. You know, it's never been like this because there's been a resurgence. A lot of artists are like, you know, doing their own thing, indie stuff, and they're like also doing stuff for Marvel and DC. It's just getting huge again. As well, also combine that with like, you know, the movies right now. A lot of, you know, superhero movies are the big thing. It's not a fad anymore. It's here to stay.
We're now joined by two more comic icons. He started his career at the age of 16 with Funny Comics, writing and illustrating the anthropomorphic Tomas and Kulas. And since then, he has been credited for more than 190 comic books, including Marvel's Dark Wolverine and DC Comics' Reign in Hell. Please welcome Stephen Segovia. Thank you, Stephen, for being here.
It's nice to be here.
Thank you. Our next guest is a comic book writer and artist who won 2 National Book Awards from the Manila Critics Circle for his graphic novels, The Mythology Class and Trip to Tagaytay. He has also made an animation for the country's national anthem and has directed 2 short films. Welcome, Arnold.
Hi, happy
Thanks,
to be
guys.
here.
You've been hounded here at Comic-Con. Thank you for letting us take you away for a bit.
It's fun.
Well, so both of you have been working in the comic industry for quite a while. What would you say it's like now for the Philippines, Arnold, now that you're...
I think there's more opportunities now than when, say, 15 years ago. Yeah. I wish there was something like this during my time back in college because there are more artists. More artists have more venues for their work, like Komikon, like the internet. So it's a very exciting time for artists like us, for comic book artists.
Great. Stephen, you're based in the US, no? So, syempre, if you compare Comic-Con there and here, looking at our culture, sa tingin mo, how is it? I mean, what would you say?
I think doon kasi dahil malaki yung bansa nila. So, mas maraming tao, mas malaki yung community. I think dahil most of ng pop culture nila is sama-sama sa isang convention, like movies. So, syempre, mas malaki sa kanila. Pero for Filipino convention like this, I think ang laki na nito. So kung meron tayong market like them, at I think parehas lang.
Parating na tayo dyan, ano?
Yeah, parang gano'n. Lalo na yung most of publishers, big publishers ay nasa US. So talagang malaki yung conventions nila. Pero kung dito sa atin i-compare, yeah, I think it's almost the same thing. Maliit lang yung bansa natin.
Well, I'd like to ask you about your journey getting here. Sa'yo, no? Stephen, 16 years old. Diyan nag-start ang career mo. So, paano nag-umpisa yung interest mo sa comics?
Bata pa ako, gusto ko nang mag-drawing as comic artist. And then, bumibili ako ng mga comics noon sa mga bangketa, yung mga local comic book. Tapos nakikita ko yung mga address nila. Siyempre noon, hindi na mauso yung internet, yung mga ganyan. Hindi pa uso yung mga email. So, ang ginagawa ko, pupunta talaga ako sa mismong office. Magpapakita ako ng sample. Siyempre, dahil bata pa ako, although di naman nila ako dinidiscourage na pangit yung drawing mo, so sinasabi lang nila yung mga tips, nagbibigay sila ng tips, nire-reject nila yung work ko. Sa akin, parang positive yun dahil, wow, pinansin nila yung gawa ko. Kasi yung mga nakikita ko, veterans talaga, nandoon, gumagawa sila. So, doon, na-inspire ako, and then I just push myself na gumawa pa ng ibang samples.
Tapos eventually, you wrote for Funny Comics.
Yeah, I did. I worked for them for 6 years. So, yeah.
Ikaw naman, Arnold. So you finished visual communications at UP, no? But
yes.
How did you get this interest into comics?
Art. I was already interested in comics because my brother, my older brother, would buy comics. I would read them after him. so and I would copy and draw. Kasi sa family, my brother was the first. Siya yung talagang artist. I was just copying his drawings. And then he became parang a teacher, professor. Ako yung naging artist sa family. So that's how I started. I've been drawing since I was like 6 years old. Wow. And I always loved comics then, and movies. So.
Your work is so reminiscent of Hayao Miyazaki to me, because from comics you've gone into animation. In fact, you're premiering Milky Boy here,
yes,
no?
Yes.
Tell us about Milky Boy.
Milky Boy is really about my personal experiences in advertising when I was still working, and also stories that I've heard, during break time, So I guess it's my parang love letter to advertising. It's my first job. I learned a lot of what I'm doing now because of advertising. I used to be a storyboard artist. I was doing storyboard for mga detergent commercials, mga soap commercials, and I honed my talents then dun. So now, so Milky Boy is kind of like that. It's about this kid who used to be parang child star for a product, for a milk product, and now he's down and out, And so parang I heard that kind of story back in advertising. I just wanted to figure out how do these kids who appeared in commercials in 90s or 80s, where are they now? So I just wanted to...
And it's entering into some film fests. You're putting it in some international film fests.
Yes,
right?
it premiered in Camp Fest in San Francisco and in LA, and now I got an email from Bulgaria.
Wow!
I got entered,
it's gone that far, huh?
Yeah, it's going around then.
Oh. So for you naman, Stephen, your big break was when you started doing work for was it Wolverine? Sorry,
Dark Wolverine.
How did that happen? Paano yung feeling? Like, explain to us how that experience came about.
At first, there's a talent agency here in the Philippines. They hire comic book artists. So what they do is they push us to make samples for US market, of course. And then sinesend niya yun sa mga editors sa Marvel, DC. At first break ko kasi is DC Comics. I do backstories for Countdown to Mystery, ganyan. And then may mga talent coordinator ang Marvel. They are looking for fresh artists. Then nakita nila yung gawa ko. Kinontak nila yung Glasshouse Graphics. Kasi yun yung agency nun. And then sabi nila, gusto nila yung work ko. And then kinontak ako mismo ng talent coordinator. Tinatanong lang niya ako nung favorite kong character for Marvel. Sabi ko, gusto ko si Wolverine. Oh, sige, we'll make that happen. Tapos yun, nagulat na lang ako. Binigyan nila is Wolverine Origins. So yeah.
You had to give up your studies to focus on illustration, no? Is that right?
Yeah. Exactly.
But I read somewhere you said people think, okay, I didn't study, wala akong but you work so long, you're at your drawing desk for 16 to 18 hours a day?
Yeah.
Ganun yung
exactly.
trabaho mo?
Kasi parang sobrang dinededicate ko talaga dahil una-una, wow, Wolverine. Tapos, syempre, medyo mataas yung standards sila when it comes to quality talaga. Kung ano yung hinihingi nila and so on. Plus, medyo hindi pa ako sanay. Hindi ko alam kung kailan magbabak ng details or kung kailan magdi-details, ganyan. Yeah.
Arnold, for you, I mean, what is your creative process like? Like that, are you sitting down for hours, to be inspired, or how does it work for you?
Well, I know I get inspiration from everywhere. Like when we go out, go on trips, then outside the country, then we get ideas everywhere. Then, and no, even with meeting with friends, you get ideas from there, by talking to people, because I always believe na parang if you really want to write a story about a certain thing, let's say if you want to make comic books, I really think na you shouldn't be just reading comic books. You should be reading something else, like novels. Go out, talk to people, watch plays, watch musicals, and read poetry and all that.
Well, interesting story on your work after Eden. I read somewhere that because all your work is based on observation, you felt you couldn't complete it until you yourself fell in love with your now wife, Cynthia.
Yes.
So how did that happen? It's actually for adults, you say, no?
Yeah, siguro 50% of after Eden. First few chapters was done. I was still single. I was unattached, ganun. And then I couldn't finish it. And then when my wife, who was my girlfriend back then, when naging kami, that's when I finished. Because now I know, okay, this is how
heartbreak.
This is how it kind of answered all my questions then, and I got to finish the book then, and I put ideas there. So.
Well, from comic books to animation, how different is that? Do you have a preferred medium now to film? I mean,
I have to say, animation is a lot difficult than comics. At least in comics, it's you just need pen and paper. You just need pen and paper, and you can tell your stories. You can share your. The animation is more complex because it requires a lot of problem-solving techniques, and yung pa, technology. Yeah. So for me, if like I test the story. If it needs to be done in comic books, I'll do it in comic books. If it's okay with animation, if it feels right. Animation.
Stephen, ngayon naman you're working on Dark Wolverine. Wolverine is your favorite character, you've said, no?
Yeah.
Sa mga X-Men. Yep. So ngayon, anong yung project mo ngayon?
Actually, natapos ko yung work for Marvel. I just finished Green Lantern. Now I'm working for Valiant Entertainment. So yeah.
How does it come about? Meaning, do you get to choose also some of the characters that you get to work on? This is really given to you?
Not really. Kasi what they do is mag-email sila, and then, for example, do you want Spidey project? Gusto mo ba to? Are you interested? Ganon. Di syempre, minsan ang hirap tanggihan dahil, wow, Spider-Man. Or minsan, pwede mo siyang tanggihan kung may kasabay kang ibang project, kung hindi talaga kaya. Kasi mas maganda kung honest ka sa kanila, mahirap naman tatanggapin mo, tapos hindi mo naman matatapos, diba? So,
anong pagkakaiba ng industriya dyan at dito? Since you worked here, do you feel that there's more room to play in the United States or as opposed to here?
Not really. Dito kasi sa atin, dahil mababa lang yung page rate, plus yung demand ng production nila is mas madami compare sa US. Like, kailangan makatapos ka ng 30 pages within a week here. So dahil maikli lang yung deadline and then maliit lang yung fees. I mean, I'm just being honest. So medyo rush. Medyo rush siya. Pero it comes to the point na hindi mo na masyado na-enjoy. So sa US kasi tatanungin ka nila ilan yung kaya mong gawin per week. So ikaw magbibigay ng schedules mo. Kumbaga mag-a-adjust sila kahit pa paano. ang minimum nila is 4 pages a week. Pag sinabi mong 5, masaya sila nun. So, kumbaga, schedules mo is based on your work speed. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, Arnold, you've done a range of projects. You've also done album covers for
Yeah.
different bands, even Ryan Cayabyab,
Yes.
Itchy Worms,
Eraserheads.
even the hot dog tribute, no?
Yes.
How is that? I
I
mean, do you like doing that? How is this different from doing the comics? Is this something you also really enjoy?
Well, I know. Yeah, why not? I mean, I enjoy doing Eraserheads.
So you have your own schedule. Mas flexible yung sa'yo. Okay, Stephen, kumbaga, no one's telling you 4 projects a week.
Yeah, well, kasi ano yun nga if when people ask me yung style ko kasi I draw fast because I'm impatient. You know, I want to see the drawing right away. So I really wouldn't recommend it to anyone. I keep telling students, no, you know, you have to take time drawing like that. Don't be like me, kasi namamadali ako because I'm impatient, ganun. So maybe because of the way, how fast I draw, I get more projects and I finish projects right away. And pretty soon, parang, okay, what's next? I'm looking for other jobs.
Well, let's look at the example of your Rizal series, the animation,
Yes.
no, which you did with Rock Ed. How long? Tell us about that first.
You know, before that, I have to say that animation is teaching me to be patient. You have to be patient with animation. I mean, you make a mistake, you have to redraw everything, you know. For yung kanina anino, yung Rocket, it was supposed to be, kasi before animation I was studying film, so it was supposed to be film. I was supposed to shoot it and with actors and but there was a lag, so I was waiting, and while waiting I tried my hand at animation, and that's how it started. So now, that's how I thank Rocket then for giving me the first animation project. That was my first animation project.
Very educational. I mean, it explains to the generation today what it was like for people, during the martial law series, because it was a celebration also of 150 years of Rizal.
Exactly,
no?
I had to ask Rocket then. I had to ask people then how and do research because I was too young during martial law, so I have no idea how difficult it was. In fact, my point of view, parang ang saya kasi I was just a kid. I only thought about Voltes 5 and Mazinger Z. I didn't know about those things. So, but now, but now after doing research, I think I have a grasp of what happened back then. So now I can relate to it and I can work on it.
Stephen, if I may ask, for you, okay ka na dyan sa States, no? You're happy with the work you're doing there. What are some of the dream projects you still want to pursue? Siyempre, dream project na to, no?
Yeah,
Pero
I think
saan
most ng mga comic artists gusto yun yung dream project nila. I think I like Batman. Yeah. Dahil siguro, hindi naman siya supernatural na superhero like Superman. And I don't know, maybe because he's badass or something. Yeah.
How do you feel about the film adaptations of comics? Happy ka ba? Or do you prefer comics over the movie? Or
Actually,
does it do justice to the comic books?
Mas happy ako sa way ng inadapt nila, na way ng pagkakatwist nila, hindi nila pinapareha sa comics. Kasi syempre, pag ginaya mo sa comics, parang alam na ng tao. Nabasa ko na yun parang expected ko na ganyan mangyayari. So mas maganda yung ganun twist. Lalo na sa mga geek na alam nila ganun yung mangyayari pero hindi pala.
Arnold, for you, any artists or other writers or artists that have inspired you?
Well, mostly kasi I'm inspired by European artists then, and I was like Stephen then I was inspired by because we grew up reading Marvel and DC comics, so I'm an American artist. But for European, inspired by I was influenced by Mobius. Yeah, and it's only recently I've been researching about sila Redondo, sila Alcala, so I'm studying their style na rin and the way they tell stories. Yan. I kind of feel bad na parang I grew up not knowing them. I only knew them siguro later on, like college.
Better late than never.
Better late than never, yeah. That's good. So and Wills Portacio, we're proud of Wills Portacio. Yeah, he's the one who inspired all of us to be, to be comic book artists, and
what advice would you give aspiring comic book artists, or any artist for that matter, on how to really get the craft?
Just enjoy what you're doing. That's it. Don't think about anything. You have to be happy with what you're doing. You have to enjoy it. As in talaga enjoy it, not think about anything. Because if you do enjoy it, the money comes in for free. That's.
Well, Stephen, you're a video game lover, no? At sabi mo, you kind of have this analogy for how to make it in life. Sabi mo, parang si Super Mario Brothers, to make it, you just make it from one world to another.
Yeah.
What did you say? How to succeed in life, no?
Well, you just have to keep pushing. You know, kasi pag nag-give up ka, hindi mo malalaman yung outcome.
Yeah.
You just have to believe you can do it.
Yeah, that's right. So advice on one more tip for if it's just to make it to continue what you're doing. One word of advice on
Just like what Arnold said, just enjoy.
Yeah.
You know, yun yung passion mo, enjoy it, and then the money comes in.
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you so much for your time, Stephen and Arnold. Thank you for being here.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, I'm sorry, that's all the time we have for tonight. Now, if you have any comments on the show, please do log on to Facebook and our Twitter pages and share your comments. And if you missed any of our past episodes and want to catch up on our shows, just download the Solar mobile app on your Android or Apple iOS. And join us again next Thursday for another round of interesting conversations here on News Cafe. I'm Mitzi Borromeo. Good evening. Comics in the form of Mga Kabalbala ni Kenkoy by Romualdo Ramos and Tony Velasquez. Years later, Filipinos began to break into the international comic book industry, working for publishers like DC Comics and Marvel, creating characters such as Batman, Superman, and Thor, to name a few. However, in the last 30 years, there has been a decline in comics as more people shifted their attention to television and movies. In 2005, a group of comic book artists and writers called the Artists' Den gathered together and started a comic book convention, or Komikon, solely dedicated to comic book enthusiasts. I'm with comic icon Jerry Alangilan. Jerry, anong experience ng Comic-Con ngayon?
Natutuwa naman ako na may Komikon kasi nabibigyan ng venue yung mga gumagawa ng comics para mailabas yung comics nila. Kasi most of these kids self-publish their own comic books. Wala silang venue kung saan na pwedeng ibenta, pwede lang i-promote, share yung comics nila. So in events like this, nabibigyan sila ng pagkakataon.
So what do you think is the best part of Comic-Con? Maybe this year compared to the previous ones?
Well, the best part of Comic-Con talaga is seeing all these creative people creating comic books out of the love of it. Hindi dahil they're being paid to do it, hindi dahil they're being told to do it. They do comics because gusto nila ang comics, mahal nila ang comics.
Today, Comic-Con is being held 3 times in a year annually, bringing together comic book enthusiasts and their idols, raising awareness on the local comic book industry, and giving support to upcoming comic book writers and artists. Hey, it's Paul Medina Jr. Hi, Paul! Kumusta? Paul, kumusta Comic-Con 2014?
Okay naman, kagaya din ng ibang Comic-Con sa pinupuntahan pa ng tao kasi akala ko mag-wane yung interest ng tao pagkatapos ng few years. Pero hindi naman eh.
So feeling mo tumutulong talaga to sa comic industry dito?
Malaki tulong niya kasi ang perception na namamatay na yung industriya eh. Dahil nga andyan na yung mga video games, andyan na yung movies, ganun. Parang kaya na nila nung yung hard copy na comics, gusto nila yung digital na. So ito ang laki ng tulong dito.
This year, Comic-Con is celebrating its 10th year, promising to bring more exciting comics to its fans by introducing new and fresh artists and writers. We're now with Lyndon Gregorio, co-founder of Comic-Con Philippines. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
And of course, you're a Philippine Star columnist, 16 years of
Yeah,
Dekada.
16 great years.
Yeah, but before we talk about that, how are you finding Comic-Con 2014 so far?
Well, we are getting a lot of energy from both the fans and the creators. They are putting out their best.
You're happy. That's good to know.
I'm very happy, both as an enthusiast of comics and one of the founders.
So 2005 was the first Comic-Con in UP Bahay ng Alumni.
That's
no?
correct.
How was it then and compare it to now?
It was hot. There was no air conditioning. So yeah, this is the hottest event. That's what we always called it. It was a summer, and we call it one of the hottest events of the year. The hottest event.
In
it's
every
true.
sense of the word, literally and
Yes,
figuratively.
yes. And now with the experience what air conditioning in the venues feel like, we're never going back. I heard though they installed air conditioning, but we like it in Bayanihan Center.
Yeah. And it's just as well you have better facilities because every year it's growing, no? How many Filipinos are attending every year?
2,000 plus as of last count for the last year, yes.
And it seems to have doubled. I think
It
today
seems
it's
to
huge.
have grown, yes.
How do you think this helps the local comic industry?
It is raising awareness for our creators that there is still an industry.
Good evening, you're watching News Cafe on the Solar News Channel. We are at the Summer Komikon in Bayanihan Center in Pasig City, where all comic enthusiasts have gathered to meet their favorite artists and writers and share their love for all things comics. We'll be meeting some of those writers and artists later and delve into their colorful minds. Comic books have been a big part of Philippine history, dating back to the first cartoon strip of The Monkey and the Tortoise, drawn by national hero Jose Rizal. Its popularity rose after American soldiers came to the country to fight during the Second World War. The Philippines even had its own...
It's fueled by those who have a passion for the medium. So that's great.
Well, speaking of the passion, how did you develop the passion for this?
Well, I caught the tail end of the golden age of comics. Well, I was taken to the dentist, and while waiting, my mother rented, and they rented comics then, funny comics, and I spotted, and I fell in love immediately with the medium.
Yeah.
And we didn't have money then, so I started creating my own comics. So she didn't buy it outright, so I started making my own. And right smack of that, it was already declining. You know, sales were down, people were no longer reading. And I'm glad that me and my fellow people, we found each other through internet. That was when I started learning how to draw. And right then, there was something called email groups, and we would start communicating. And a few years after that, we decided, why not? Since no one's helping us, we should help ourselves.
It's true. So how do you choose the participants, the artists and writers, illustrators that join Comic-Con every year? Because we have so many talents, no?
Oh, that's true. It's usually a first come, first serve basis. And there's a preference for those who have